Right, welcome back to the Conviction Fiction Podcast, where we change the narrative and change lives. I'm your host, Antoine Rivers. And if you've been following this show for a while, you know we talk about real stories from real people who have turned pain into purpose or try to make a difference when it comes to the reentry process or even before being incarcerated. So today's guest embodies that transformation in a way that shakes the very core of the justice system. Her name is Courtney Teasley, a legal disruptor, justice strategist, and the CEO of MFn, where she's flipping the courtroom into a classroom and rewriting the rules for advocacy. Courtney's known for her MFn framework, which is mindset, finesse, I want to make sure I right, and non-negotiables, a model for proactive justice that's been used to flip judicial elections. Also, fight family separation and equip communities to stop incarceration before it starts. Now, I'll be honest, this conversation hit different because when you lived on the side of the system where your decisions are made about you, not with you, hearing someone say we can change that, now that's very powerful. So, without any further ado, let's get into the conviction fiction. All right, welcome to the Conviction Fiction. My name is Antoine, and today we have Courtney Teasley. Hi, Courtney. How's it going?
Hi, it is going well. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast today.
Hey, no problem. No problem. Glad for you to be here. But before I ask about your journey, I want to take y'all back to something one of our earlier guests had said. His name was Dante Hayes. He told me that sometimes you don't choose the fight chooses you. And that line stuck with me. Yeah, it stuck with me because every person I've met who's out here pushing for justice didn't just wake up one morning and say, hey, I'm going to fight the system. Something usually happens that made them see the cracks, and then they decided to do something about it. So, Courtney, I want to start right there, right? Um, you've been described as a legal disruptor and justice strategist. But before all that, how did you first get involved in this work?
Wow. So, first, how I got into this work is I went to law school and I went, no, actually, it's before I went to law school. While I came out of undergrad and I started working for a criminal defense lawyer who was in private practice at the time. She was a young Black woman, and she was killing it, right? She was doing criminal defense work, and I saw her really owning that space, and I saw her owning it in a way that is not often taught to us, right? Usually we are told when you're in law school or going to law school or coming out, it's like, oh, you got to go work for the government, you need to go work for them, you need to go do that, right? Versus actually finding a way to work without your hands being tied, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
fighting that system. And so it's often hard to fight when your hands are tied by the person who's paying you. And so I was able to see this woman fight in a way where she didn't have to answer to anyone. Wasn't anybody writing her check. She was out here actually for the people. And so I saw it possible to chart a different route in this legal system. So being from a marginalized community, I had already had the fire within me. My mother, I'm
Mm-hmm.
a product of the crack epidemic. My mother was incarcerated for a number of years, all due to a public defender who took her case, and she was a user. She didn't have custody of her children, had nowhere to live, none of that stuff, but they still charged her as a seller, which, you're going to get way
Yeah.
more time, right? And they do that strategically so they can force a plea. And that lawyer, the public defender, was complicit with it. Instead of going deeper, instead of doing a little bit more, she went ahead and just let her out as a user, as a seller, and that affected her life afterwards. And so I saw an opportunity for me to come in and disrupt in that way in this system without having my
Mhm.
hands tied by it.
Oh, that's awesome. So, like, just using your personal experience, that kind of puts you in the mode to say, this is something to fight for. That's
Oh,
awesome.
absolutely.
Hmm. And then when you think about it, like you were talking about the crack epidemic, and during those years, there was those mandatory minimums, right? Uh, the crime bill was one thing. I think that was a federally mandated type of deal. You got so many ounces of this, then you get this no matter what, right? So,
And
yeah.
then you know what happens with states after some federal legislation, especially if you are in a state like I'm in, Tennessee, right? They start to mirror some of the things that the federal government is doing, especially if it is going to ultimately harm marginalized people, which is exactly what that did. So that a lot of the laws, state laws, kind of mirrored that, and we're doing some of the same things.
Right. And that's powerful. And I love that you said that because so many of us come into this fight through lived experience, not just textbooks or theory. You're talking about transforming frustration into fuel. And that's something that resonates deeply with this platform and our listeners. So with that being said, we got your history, like how you got into this stuff. But now that your mission, you're doing your thing. So I remember when we did a podcast. It was called Behind the Walls, behind bars, behind the walls. And one of our guests said that prison just doesn't start like once you leave the gates or once the gates open, but not even when you leave. That line reminded me that incarceration is a cycle, one that starts way before crime ever happens. So, how can you speak directly to that truth? Does crime actually happen before it happens? Does that make sense?
So
Help me
yeah,
out.
like I don't know if crime happens before it happens, but I definitely think that um the lack of education and legal literacy definitely is the starting point, right? That's where we even get into the system because we give up our rights so early. However, it's usually because we are from what I like to call the DAM community, disproportionately affected marginalized minority communities. And in those communities, we are taught normally growing up to be compliant. We're not taught to speak up. We're not taught to really advocate on behalf of ourselves. We're not taught to go against what someone in authority is saying, right? And then we're not taught legal literacy, right? So we're not taught any of these things. So we're not taught how to be an advocate and speak up for ourselves. And then we're not taught the tools to actually do it. We're not taught how to fully participate as a citizen. And so I think that right? Not having legal literacy, not knowing how to use your rights, not knowing how to fully participate as a citizen in this country. I think that is very important as young people, right? For us to learn. And then when we're learning these different things as young people, we then are empowered to speak up for ourselves. So if we have a cop, right, which we know what is the way that you get into this system, probable cause, right? It's probable. It is solely an officer with all his motive and biases saying, oh, you probably did something, right? And that's all it takes for you to get into the criminal justice system. And so knowing your rights and knowing how to advocate on behalf of yourself when someone only has to determine you probably did something is very important. And so that is how people are funneled into this system, because a lot of times they give up their rights. They say things that they don't have to say. They move in ways and give permissions that they don't have to give, but only because they were never taught what they can do, right? And so, and our community is not empowered to stand up for that as well either, right? As soon as we hear someone has been arrested, even though the Constitution says you have the right to be innocent until proven guilty, we don't care that someone is probability. We just are like, oh, you've been arrested. We're throwing you away. You're in trouble. You need to do better as a person. Absolutely
Right.
not. That's not it.
Yeah, and Courtney, that's some real powerful stuff because your mission seems to start before most people even realize that there's a problem. You built the
Absolutely.
entire framework on that, the MFN network that helps communities prevent incarceration before it starts. So, can you talk about that mission? Like, what does proactive justice look like in action, and how can ordinary people, not just lawyers, take part in it?
Oh my God, I'm so happy you asked that, because everything about MFN, my business, I coach lawyers and I train advocates, right? Because every lawyer is not an advocate and every advocate is not a lawyer. That is very important for us to understand. So I train advocates because those are the people, when I was fighting in my 12 plus years of criminal defense law, I was always engaged in the community, right? That's how we got the most change, is when the community cared about what was going on as well. And so I created this framework, MFN, mindset, finesse, and non-negotiable boundaries. So that way I could help train advocates. So I had multiple cases I did a very public case where I did a method I call criminal defense organizing around the case on some Black children that had been taken up in an outer county. If you look on Instagram, you can probably find a case, hashtag Disrupt Manchester. It was on Twitter a lot as well. But what we did was I just created this legal team around these people who were from Georgia and just coming through Tennessee trying to go to a funeral in Chicago, and their children were taken and forced into foster care, right? All over a small amount of marijuana, right? And this happens all the time to marginalized people. Foster care is utilized to be able to separate the children. And so I was fighting that case, and I was like, you know what? I got to train a lot more people here, because I was moving out of the practice of law at that time. I wasn't practicing heavily anymore. I was building MFn. And I started going deeper into advocacy training and making sure they understood, first of all, M stands for mindset, right? We got to change our mindset. Like I was just telling you, it needs to go to an innocent until proven guilty mindset. It has to move from this person is being charged with something and, oh, they must have done it, to actually, let me move that criminal mindset out the way. You know, the Constitution does provide us the right to be innocent until proven guilty. And so I think that we need more. I want to know more, right? I'm going to use my civic duty to find out more. I want to know exactly what's going on, right? What you were doing. Why did you pull that person over? What does your background look like? Let me see those personnel records. Who else you pulling over like this? You know what I mean? How often do you lie like this? What do you do? So those are the things that I just did naturally as a criminal defense attorney, cross-examining cops all the time, really getting them nailed to their testimony and exposing any kind of motives and biases. And so I just kind of transitioned that into a framework, so that way I could pretty much pull back the veil of the criminal defense law, pull back the veil of lawyers, right? And let you see, what are you looking for, right? What are you really looking for? And that's in the finesse, right? So how we fight is totally different. We fight in a way where we are really using our full civic duties, whether it's court watch, protest by court watch, right? Whether we are sending, all of us are sending in FOIA requests for information, whether we're all requesting the video of the stop, whether we're all requesting the personnel records, whatever we're requesting, we're sending letters to everybody's boss, right? We're letting them know, hey, we pay taxes here. You work for us, and we need to know what you're doing. You're not just going to be running rampant. And we utilize the community to do that, because those are the voters, right? These are the people who put these people in office. And so they're more likely to listen when they see they have all eyes on them. And then the non-negotiable boundaries. We don't give up our rights, not an inch. And we stand on the fact that that is not disrespect. It is protection.
Right. And that's the word right there, because most of us are trained to respond, to wait until something happens. But like you said, you're saying justice is a mindset, not a moment. And I think about how many families could have been spared heartbreak if someone in that corner had known how to intervene earlier. Like, I don't know, teacher, pastor, a coach, or parent. And you're building that bridge between awareness and action. And that's something the streets, the schools, and the sanctuaries, they all need to hear this. Okay.
Let me say this real quick, Antoine. Can I just add this one little piece in? What you just said is so real. And this is we use Khalif Browder as the case study, right? Because how many families could have been spared if someone responded earlier? Let's think about Khalif Browder when he sat in Rikers Island for 3 years, and his preliminary hearing, he never got one, and he's literally going back and forth to court, and this district attorney is never there. They're short on vacation. They're doing all types of stuff, right? Where is the community? Where are the people? Because if there were people coming to those court dates and they're like, hey, what's going on? Khalif Browder's on the docket. This DA is not here. Let me go back and let the community know, because this is crazy. Does he not have the right to due process? Does he not have the right to a speedy and public trial? Like, why is this boy just sitting up in here waiting on a hearing, right? Where's his lawyer? Why isn't his lawyer doing more? Let's fire them and hire another lawyer for him. You know what I mean? So this is what we can do when the community is actually concerned about the least of us. And I had to do a whole lecture around that called Advocating for the Least of Us, how churches can have a greater role in ending mass incarceration. I did that earlier this year with American Baptist College, because the church is a good place to really make some proactive change in our communities.
Yeah. Oh, and that brings me to my next question, because we talked about the Brown case here, but what have been some of your biggest wins or lessons learned from working with those churches, schools, or those justice campaigns?
My biggest lessons learned has been that, and that's a really good question, is that most people, like, they just don't know where they fit in. They don't know what they can do. Right. And then, like, so when I was working with American Baptist College and I went down to the Samuel DeWitt Proctor conference, and, which is an amazing conference. If you're looking for the justice seeking pastors and the disruptors, then they're there. Right. And so I kind of learned that listening to the people who are coming, they're like, look, there are a lot of issues going on, but what can we do? We're hearing the preaching, we're hearing all this theory, we're hearing all, like, give me some tangible action, give me some steps, right, that I can be taking.
How do you measure progress? How do you measure the progress, right? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what people want. They want to do more than just, like, come and pray. They want to do more than just go to the prison ministry when you're only, and there's nothing wrong. There's a great, rehabs, all that good stuff, re-entry programs. However, if we spend some of that time as well, those are reactive. You're only helping after someone has already become a felon, or they've been, pled guilty or been found guilty. That's the only time majority of people want to assist in this fight against mass incarceration. But if our efforts were placed more proactively, right, that entire time that somebody is fighting the case, right, or prior to that in legal literacy, we can make a lot more change, right, a lot faster. So that's kind of what I learned, is just that people really just needed to be able to figure out where they can fit in, like, what are their natural strengths, what are they naturally like doing, and then how can you utilize that to advocate on behalf of someone who is currently fighting case, or these young children who are in your church. Maybe we add legal literacy to our Sunday school curriculum. You know what I mean? Like, come on now, we're getting into a place in this time frame where we have to really step up and do some unconventional things.
Yeah, especially with ICE and all this other stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, literally. And they jumping out not on just, you think people are like, oh, it's just happening to brown people. Well, first of all, we should care anyway if it's just happening to them. But let's move that to the side. It's not just happening to brown people. They're doing it to Black people as well, right? We got a whole National Guard in Chicago. We got a whole National Guard down in Memphis. Like, it's ramping up. And so if our efforts are not ramping up, we're failing our community.
I agree. And you challenged the nonprofit mindset that glorifies struggle and showing some sustainable movement. What building really looks like, right? So with the real world impact of that, what are your next steps? What's going on next? Because here's my thing. When it comes to just this whole MFN network, I want to say this. Every guest that's ever sat on this show has taught me something new about purpose. From my brother Eric McDaniel talking about cognitive dissonance, Jessica Jones on love and healing, and every story shows that transformation doesn't stop once you find your voice. It keeps evolving, it keeps changing. And Courtney, you're leading a movement that's growing fast, from your criminal justice literacy courses that went viral on TikTok. Hey, went viral. Congratulations, right? To your easy way to learn your rights book series, which I'm very eager on how I can get my copy of that. So you're teaching people not just how to survive the system, but how to outthink it. So I got to ask this, what's next for you? What's the next level of this mission?
I love that you asked that. And yes, you will get a copy of it. I'll definitely shoot you over. Book 2 just came out, and we have not even been publicizing it because we'll do it next year, but it's the 5th Amendment, and I think you would love it. So yeah, I'll shoot that over. But what's next for us is, like, literally we are moving over into going, and this is only for, places who feel aligned and called, but like we're going into a certain more, how do I want to call it? The Underground Rights Tour, right?
Okay. I know about underground stuff. Yeah.
You know how that goes, right? And so it's not going to be ads run about it. It's not going to be any of that. It's going to be, if you know, and if this is, what your community is about, like, so reaching out to the churches and reaching out to the organizations who are doing the work, the ones who care, the ones who are already in there and kind of locking in and coming and do just a legal literacy workshop. Right, do a whole know your rights, not just know your rights, but it's a legal literacy experience, like giving you a little bit deeper, right? Give you that little advocacy training, so that way you can arm your communities, you can arm your congregations, you can just arm the people you love with this very, very vital information that not only our children are not being taught, right? But we were not taught. Our parents weren't taught, right? And so now I made it in such an easy to break down way that the easy way to learn your rights book series is like I have some illustrations in there that are kind of illustrating how this works. I'm breaking it down in layman terms, not using all that legalese, because when my life is on the line, what I found out as a veteran criminal defense attorney is that you don't need to talk above my head. I don't need you to be the smartest, person in this room with just me and you, and you're trying to talk
Right.
above me and make me feel stupid. No, I need you to speak my language. And that's
Right.
something I do very well, being from the DAM community, disproportionately affected, marginalized minority community. I speak African American English very well. I'm bilingual, if you will, right? And so it's easy to translate what's happening in the legalese, the AAE, to let you know what you need to focus on.
Hey, and that's exactly what this platform is about, man. I do have some resources here in Atlanta. I want to like organizations that I kind of deal with here that they would benefit from, to not necessarily get out of the hand holding, but to get more proactive when it comes to knowing their rights before and even after the incarceration stage. So got to turn awareness in the movement, man. And that's when people know their rights, when they understand money, policy, and power, that's when real change starts to happen.
Yes.
This is awesome. So with that being said, I know that you're going to send over some information about how to get books and things of that nature. Very eager to get that off the ground. You're in Nashville, is it?
Yeah, I'm right up the street.
Right
You're
up
in
the street.
Yeah, I'm up the street.
Well, about 5 hours. Just 5 hours up the street.
Hold on. 3.5. 3.5.
Oh, you
We
drive
can
a
make
fast
it
car.
there.
You
We
drive
can
a
make it there.
fast. All right, so Courtney, I want to thank you for the work you're doing and for taking the time to share your wisdom here on the Conviction Fiction. You remind us that justice isn't something we demand, it's something that we build. Right. So to everyone listening, this conversation sparks something in you. Don't let it fade when the episode's end. Visit Courtney's platform. They will be in the bio. Learn the framework, teach it to your kids, your church, and your classroom. Right. And as always, this is Conviction Fiction. We're changing the narrative. We're changing lives. Thanks, Courtney. I want you to hang out if you can for a few minutes.
I can.
Sounds good. All right.
Yes.
See you in a second.